Hello, I'm Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, and it's an honor to be joining you again, even if it's a virtual appearance this time, and I'm already looking forward to when we can next gather together in person. I want to thank you for inviting me to help celebrate this 30th anniversary and share some thoughts on the occasion. For 30 years, the National Action Network has moved this country toward justice, equality, and equal rights for all. The arc of American life does not bend toward justice on its own, not without the hands and the efforts of moral leaders like you. And thank you to Reverend Sharpton for being such a leader, a powerful voice helping America to constantly be better and do better, someone from whom I have learned a great deal. Ours is a complicated moment, one in which the scale of our challenge is matched only by the scope of our opportunity. We are still struggling to wrestle with the national tragedy of a pandemic, with disproportionate rates of infection and death in communities of color. But we finally have hope, with millions of Americans being vaccinated each day, and a White House that has made vaccine equity a pillar of the response. In our economy, people are still teetering on a high wire, and many are paying more for transportation and housing each month than their paycheck can sustain. But we stand here with an opportunity to make the largest investment in American jobs since World War II. We need to overcome 4 years of damage and 400 years of injustice, a mountain of mistrust built over the centuries and still growing today, with yet another painful reminder of America's racialized inheritance in the trial of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. But we also have Washington poised to pass game-changing progressive policies, policies that organizations like the National Action Network have been championing for years. And we have the first black woman vice president in history, along with the most diverse administration team yet to serve this country. We live with all of these different and challenging truths all at once in this moment. We meet this moment with grounds for hope, the hope inspired by vaccines, new jobs, and an administration dedicated to equity. And that is a testimony to the impact of hard work and organizing, the value of groups like the National Action Network, and the power of advocacy as well as direct service. Especially in this moment, black and brown communities and activists across the country have demanded more of America, insisting that this country do better not only by all of those who have been excluded or oppressed, but by this country's own professed creed. The work ahead is daunting, but it is heartening that on the national stage today, we're discussing how much progress we can make, how big we can go, and no longer just how much damage we must deal with. You now have partners in Washington who believe that equity is not a program, it's not a department, it's a profound value and a lens that must apply to every program, every department, and every decision. We know that racism is responsible for more destruction and injustice than any other force in American life. So I'm proud to be part of the Biden-Harris administration where anti-racism is policy. And I'm glad that you're hearing from many of my fellow cabinet members this week about the good work that we're doing together. The Biden-Harris administration made clear that racial equity and support for underserved communities would be an all of government, all of society priority. It was encoded from day one in the President's order and embodied in the Justice 40 initiative that has the goal of delivering 40% of the benefits of the President's investments to historically underserved and overburdened communities. So let's talk about the work we need to do to get there. Transportation is a foundation of our economy, and it's also an expression of our values. Advancing racial equity is among my highest priorities as Secretary. The transportation decisions we make can either exacerbate inequity or build a better future. And we're clear on the path that this department will take. We are working to ensure that equity is central to how we spend taxpayer money. In this administration's earliest days, we announced that we were adding racial equity as a consideration for transportation projects in the $889 million Infrastructure for Rebuilding America, or INFRA, program. This month, we revised the $1 billion BUILD program, which provides competitive grants for transportation projects, and renamed it the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE program, to reflect that new emphasis in our evaluation criteria. We're also looking at how DOT can help address inequities in our criminal justice system, so that a traffic stop is no less safe for a black person than it is for a white American, and how we can support voting initiatives as the sacred right to vote comes under attack in states across the country. We've created an equity task force for this department, one in which I will be involved personally, to make sure that this remains a North Star to guide our work throughout this department and throughout this administration. These are important steps that will benefit communities, but they're steps. We need a giant leap, which brings me to the American Jobs Plan. This could be the best chance in our lifetimes to transform our infrastructure, and with it, the foundation that allows every American to live, work, and thrive. It will provide more than a $2.25 trillion investment in American infrastructure, including $621 billion for transportation and resilience. It will do so many good things, and I want to touch on just a few highlights. The American Jobs Plan will help create millions more jobs in cities and towns and communities across the country. Good jobs, often union jobs, the majority of which will go to people without a college degree, building a modern infrastructure. The plan also invests $100 billion in workforce development programs focused on underserved communities. The plan includes $20 billion for road safety. That's important for everyone, but it's certainly a matter of equity. On our roads, the fatality rate of black people is twice that of white people. We cannot accept this. The plan includes $80 billion to expand and modernize Amtrak and the rail network, and it doubles federal funding for public transit. Again, that's important for everyone. It is certainly a matter of equity. Black people are 4 times more likely than white people to rely on public transit to commute to work. And they deserve a commute that is reliable, safe, and affordable. This is especially important because in 2019, our lowest income households spent 37% of their after-tax income on transportation. That's up from 29% just 2 years earlier. We can't accept this. The plan also includes $174 billion to help spark the electric vehicle revolution. We will rebuild our infrastructure in a way that is not only more resilient, but actually helps fight climate change. And 40% of the benefits of those climate and clean infrastructure investments will be targeted to historically underserved and overburdened communities. Now is finally the time to address these major inequities, including those caused by highways that were built through black and brown communities, as well as decades of disinvestment that left small towns and rural main streets stranded. The President's American Jobs Plan includes $20 billion to reconnect neighborhoods cut off by past transportation decisions, to advance opportunity, equity, and environmental justice in new transportation projects. I've just mentioned a lot of numbers, but I want to put them all in context. We have not, since President Eisenhower, made such an investment in infrastructure, and we have never in our history made such an investment in transportation equity. My predecessor in the Obama-Biden administration, Secretary Anthony Foxx, did especially important work to advance the cause of transportation equity. I know that I have big shoes to fill in this regard, and I'm thrilled that we may have the resources, thanks to this bill, to further deliver on a vision that Secretary Foxx helped introduce. What we see throughout all of these investments is a lesson that goes beyond transportation, that equity is good for everyone. The American Jobs Plan will not solve every problem in every community, but it will address many of the challenges we face today and create a stronger, more equitable future for decades to come. It empowers our young people to inherit and build a country where the American dream is truly, finally accessible to all. And that's what your work has been all about. The National Action Network and other civil rights organizations and community networks have planted the seeds for years. Now it's time for us to water them together. What we grow must be strong enough and vast enough to outlast us all, and I believe it will be. So thank you to the National Action Network, to Reverend Sharpton, to all of you for 30 years of working to make America the best version of herself, a version that lives up to our ideals. Congratulations again on this milestone. Thank you for your good work, and be well.